Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. Normally, we would be doing a themed song this week. We're doing covers, so you would probably expect an original cover today. But I don't like the gap between Friday and Monday for the pair of this song, so instead, I'm putting both of those on Monday. I'm taking Monday special selection. We're doing it right now. That's how today's going to go. The special selection comes at us from Patrick. It says Blind Guardian, and then there was silence. Alright, let's dig into this. Some really interesting cover art. We got 14 minutes ahead of us, so get comfy, grab some water, hydrate, let's go. Yeah, we got the strings in the background providing the rhythmic cadence here. Very interesting shift. Really interesting panning on the rim hits of the snare. And we're bringing back that rhythmic cadence I set up in the intro right here. The vocals feel very distant though. It's an interesting production for them. Oh, yeah, that tom run. Oh, that is a meaty riff right there. Nice little rhythm on the bell of the cymbal. Oh, that's sforzando on the brass. Yeah, we have those nice orchestral stingers with all the band coming together to end this. Yeah, ending that phrase with the entire band is so powerful, bringing everyone together on the same idea.
Welcome to the end. Watch your step, Cassandra, you may fall.
Yeah, listen to those harmonies.
Find myself in darkest places, find myself drifting away.
It's very epic, the whole song so far. We're only a few minutes in, and it already has this vibe. Having the guitar on the right with those harmonics lining up with what the vocals are doing. Really nice layering idea. Big epic moment, yeah. Those gallops and the bass kick are real nice at keeping the energy rolling right here. I like the string transition into this moment and turning this into a march. Is there a glockenspiel in the back? It's interesting when they choose to do smooth transitions and harsh. I haven't quite figured out a pattern yet. Nice call and response. I like the energy and the power in that single vocalist. Yeah, very single-minded, aggressive moment. Continuing on with the single-minded element, just that bass kick really hitting. Nothing fancy. Never give up, never get it. Yeah, this is a very single-minded section, and the music is really supporting these lyrical items. Bring it up to third, increase the intensity, bring the vocals back. This is gorgeous. And they rose it up again. Yeah. That note.
I feel that some surprise, they're gone. When your time goes by, and you will still kept out of sight. We live in misty tales and poetry, joy, all of this and beauty.
Ooh, they were really going for a powerful motif right there, and it fell a little flat, which of course was intentional. I'm really curious what's going on in the lyrics though. There we go, there's the majesty. Back to the march idea and the snare. It's very a victorious section. Very adversarial here. That third chord gives me Megadeth vibes. I'm curious what that relationship is. love how that folky line in the background lined up with the vocal rhythms. You know, they were definitely alluding to this, but I didn't think they were going to go for it. Oh, that resolution. That's the second time we've seen that. And we're back to this sort of militaristic march, but it's brighter, it's more triumphant this time. Very adventurous. Interesting way, I think we're about to end this. There's the ending. We bring back the militaristic section without the snare. Halftime. Really has the weight of finality to it. That intro string rhythm. There's that glockenspiel part. Yeah, all these callbacks are fantastic. That's the transition string line. Yeah. Yeah, that is that's some really interesting stuff. Is that it though? Yeah. All right. Lots of really cool things going on in here. First of all, how many singers do they have? I hear it's got to be at least two, maybe three main vocalists that I'm really identifying as far as timbre goes, but there could be more. It's just that I can kind of hear similarities between some of the others that I think it might just be a second track that's at a different pitch. But I would really love to know, someone tells me, hey, there's a full choir here. Like that's gonna warm my heart. It really is. If they have so many people in the band doing vocals. But like I said, I'm kind of picturing maybe three, and then a lot of double tracking for getting those additional wider sections. Geez, where do I start with this? Epic. Okay, I guess we're gonna start at the beginning, which I really don't remember much of. I'm gonna try to get back to this. This was an incredibly dense, long, and normally I say dense when I'm talking about things that have a lot of stuff going on. If you check out yesterday's look at Yes, maybe it was 2 days ago. Yes is Awaken. I mentioned that the first section is incredibly dense, and I'm talking about layering. There's a lot going on as far as layers, and yes, there are certainly sections in here where there are a lot of instruments playing simultaneously. So there is what I would call vertical depth, but there's also massive horizontal depth here in the fact that the song structure, if I were to lay this out in a traditional style of assigning a letter to each section, I mean, I feel like personally I'd probably be getting to the L's, M's, and somewhere in there. We were looking at least 13, 14, 15 sections here, if not more. I feel like there's a few transitory sections that pop up for a 4 or 8 bar phrase, and then we're out of them. Plus, we have a lot of variations on sections. I mentioned at the one, I think it was right near the end, I said this is the militaristic section without the marching snare. And yeah, so we would call that, assuming the military section was, it ended up getting labeled, section, I don't know, K or something. It would be K with like a little tick mark next to it, the tilde, to emphasize that it is K with a twist. So even if we don't get super deep into the alphabet as far as assigning labels to these sections, there's still going to be a lot of variation between them. There's a ton of callbacks going on. I'm sure quite a few that I missed, given it was my first time hearing the song. But there are even quite a few that I did pick up on. So yeah, as far as figuring out the structure of the song, it is dense in that way as well. There are just so many sections to this track. I'm bound to have forgotten a few of them. And unfortunately, some at the beginning are definitely ones that got axed from my short-term memory there. So I think, yeah, starting from the beginning is not going to work. We're going to have to do more of an overarching concept. And I'm going to look at some recurring ideas that popped up rather than analyzing each individual section. Now, what's interesting here is that the song seems to work within a handful of concepts. There are the big choir sections, which are multiple vocalists, sometimes singing different things, which I noticed happened more at the beginning, not so much at the end, or at least I don't remember it happening so much at the end. Somewhere about the middle point to the end of the track, a lot of the multiple vocal sections were all harmonized rather than multiple vocal sections, which is something we saw at the beginning, which I thought was really neat. There was one part where I think there were 3 vocal lines going at the same time. It was just phenomenal. It might have just been 2 with some harmony. I just remember it being incredibly dense as far as what the vocals were doing. So we have these big choir moments with, like, I don't know, it sounds like 5 to 7 vocals and usually a large ensemble of instruments to support it. And what's interesting about these sections, I want you to really pay attention the next time you listen to this. If you go back or if you click the link in the description to go check out the original video without me talking over it, which I highly suggest. Nobody should ever check out these songs with me talking over it and that be their only exposure. Definitely always go check out the original link in the video and listen to it uninterrupted. But yeah, listen to where the vocals are placed and how they're mixed. Anytime we get a really big choir, I mentioned it at the beginning, it feels like they're distant. It feels like I can never quite turn the volume up high enough to really feel like the vocals are where they should be. They don't ever feel close enough to me. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's because I'm very used to the modern style of putting the vocals front and center. Maybe it's a perception thing. I figure there's so many vocalists. Why are they so quiet? I'm not sure, but it always felt out of place to me. However, listen to the points when there's a single vocalist. They are dominating the song. And it's really to me that's backwards. We've taken less power away from a section, but we've increased the volume. To me that's backwards. You have more people, it should be louder. But it is an interesting choice that seems to be quite intentional. I'm curious now that I'm thinking about production. um, I think this is something that pops up whenever I talk about production in something like this that feels like it's a bit older. It makes me think, when did this come out? Because the production techniques, the production styles, everything's going to be very different. So this came off of 2002, A Night at the Opera. Um, it's the final track off the album too. So 2002, I think we would have had digital stuff, so the production could have been tighter, but I don't know exactly what production techniques would have been prominent at the time. But anyways, we're getting off topic here. It's an interesting choice that I find very intriguing. It's backwards. It's the opposite of what I would expect. But yeah, we have these big choir moments. We have these solo singer moments as well. They happen less often. They usually have a smaller orchestration around them. And then we have the most restrained sections of the song, which tend to be just a handful of instruments, very different from the other two sections, which tend to be a bit more bombastic or what's that word? Spectacle. They tend to deal with the spectacle of creating this epic style of music. And there weren't too many of those more restrained sections. They were definitely the fringe aspect in here. But I think it would be more interesting, rather than looking at each individual section as a section of the song, I think it would be more interesting to plot out how and when they move between these three styles. And maybe we can see a bit of movement and momentum and the ebb and flow of the song in that style. Being that there's just so many individual sections, I'm not sure it wouldn't provide much insight into the flow of the song, as much as checking out what sections end up being heavier or brighter or more powerful versus which ones are a bit more, they focus on smaller ideas. So that would probably be something I do if I listen to this again, is really check out the flow, when we stay bombastic and when we rein it in a little bit, and possibly piece that in with the lyrics. Now, I am going to get to the lyrics in a moment, not necessarily the lyrics themselves, but the concept of the song. I want to keep diving into some of the stuff they're doing, though. I mentioned callbacks. They are all over the place. It is phenomenal to see something like this on this level. In this genre, I mean, I don't want to put down metal. All right, I don't. But there's a lot of metal that tends to be very linear. Or even rock. I don't know what you want to classify this as. To me, it's lighter than metal. I would put this in rock, but I think technically this is power metal, symphonic metal. So I think technically the metal term goes there. I don't know, whatever. Typically, though, we see a lot more linearity in music where an idea exists in its own vacuum. All right, it might be the verse, it might be the chorus, it might get it might get repeated somewhere. The chorus happens all the time, but the third time we hear a chorus, we don't call it a callback to the first chorus. It's a repetition of the section. So there's a lot of linearity where each section is in a vacuum and you move from one section to the next. Each of these sections seems to be ripe for foreshadowing and callbacks. There are multiple, and I mean more fingers than I have on my hands, times that I heard a concept in two places, two very different sections, two very different moments of the song. Um, and it ties the entire song together. This is something we typically only see in a lot of classical music, especially older classical music. And it's this idea that we've talked about this before, of taking a concept and placing it all throughout as a sort of theme or a leitmotif to aid the listener in understanding what is happening and showcasing the entire work as a cohesive piece of art. It is phenomenal, and it's something I don't see enough of in the world of rock and metal, or pop or country, any popular modern mainstream. Not even mainstream, there's a lot of fringe stuff too, I think, that just it doesn't utilize this technique. And that's, I really want to drive that home. I'm not saying that it's better to do this. It is not. I think it's better, right? As a personal bias, I really enjoy, especially the lengthier tracks, to have callbacks to older stuff or to foreshadow upcoming ideas. But I don't think it's just a better tool overall. It can be used very poorly. It is simply just a tool in the toolbox that a composer can utilize while making a song. I just have an affinity for it. I absolutely love it. I think it shows an understanding of one's work in a larger capacity, right? This person didn't just make a verse and then a chorus and then a bridge and then a D and an E and an F section and just made all these linear ideas and maybe looped the chorus back. No, no. The composer here, or composers, I don't know how many people worked on this song, had a grand idea and could see every section of the song like in a larger picture kind of concept. They saw the entire puzzle at the same time, and they understood, oh, these two pieces are, they have similar ideas, maybe lyrically, maybe thematically. Let's take the violins from here and put it in here. Maybe we don't have to give it to the violins. Maybe there are no violins in there. Give it to the guitar, right? Just so that we can make a connection between these two ideas, because there is a connection there somewhere. Maybe it is in the lyrics. Maybe it's in, what it's talking about. And they make that connection in the music. And I absolutely love that. It shows such an understanding of what they're trying to achieve with their art, with their music. And it happens all over the place. It is just gorgeous how many times I heard something that said, oh, that's from this other place we saw, or oh, that's from this one. Or I heard something in the background and said, oh, we're moving into this next idea. And sure enough, they brought it in. It's masterful placing of ideas. It really is. They understand this song in its entirety. It's also part of the reason why a song with so many different ideas can come together and feel unified. Now, part of that is going to be in the production. The song doesn't really back off the volume at all. It doesn't really back off the width. It doesn't have multiple styles of groups of instrumentation either. Pretty much the same instruments you hear from start to finish. So there's a lot of stuff in the production and just raw timbre use in the song that really hold it together as well. But this idea of hearing old ideas in new contexts it's the glue that keeps everything together. It's the bow around the box. That doesn't hold things together. That's for ornamentation. Whatever. I'm losing my analogies here. It is just really awesome to see this happen. And I urge you, definitely, the next time you listen, really hone in on singular ideas. Listen to the violin. If you can single out an instrument, do so. And really get a feel for what they're playing and listen for that idea later. Whether it's a rhythmic concept, listening note for note or chords is a little more difficult for most people. Most people can pick up on rhythm, so that might be a place to start. But if it's a melody that you can hum and you kind of get it stuck in your mind, you might be able to hear it later on as well. And I think that's awesome. It makes the song into a bit of an Easter egg hunt. The more times you listen to it, not only you get to hear these little callbacks. You're like, oh, that was neat. I've listened to it 10 times. I didn't notice that. But it also raises your appreciation for the track because you can, it's showing you these little ties between these sections, right? And you can be, oh, that's how these two are combined. The lyrics are similar between these two sections, but the music was different. I really didn't understand. Well, now they copied this part over there. And I don't know how technical they get with it. The few ones that I picked up on were one-to-one conversions, whether they took the exact melody or they took the exact rhythm, or maybe they took the exact part. Like I mentioned, that string idea at the end, it was the transitory rising in thirds concept. That was taken note for note from a transitory idea from early in the track. But they can also invert it, they can flip it, they can spin it around, play something backwards, they can invert it and play it backwards. And there's a lot of ways that they can take an idea and utilize it elsewhere, and still retain the feeling, even though it isn't a one-to-one copy. And those are more insidious. Those are harder to find because your brain will understand that there's a cohesion there, but your ear, you might not be able to hear exactly how they're related. And even I have a really hard time doing that, especially once you start working with reversed. Yeah, that doesn't work so well for me. That's hard to pick out. The next thing that I really enjoyed is Counterpoint. I don't think there are many times I pointed it out because honestly there is so much going on. But there's a lot of times they have a lot of lead instruments. When you have a lot of lead instruments, they're going to play leads simultaneously. The alternative is harmonizing, and they do a lot of they do a lot of harmonizing in this track for sure. But they also allow each of their melody lines to play different things. And that's exactly what counterpoint is. It's when you have two melody lines, two leading musical ideas happening at the same time. And I absolutely love this. There was one point where the strings and a solo vocalist were going on, and the strings were doing something more rhythmic. There was a melody to it, but I think the main purpose of it was to provide a rhythmic structure because the drums were not playing at this point, and the vocalist had a completely different rhythmic structure. However, every two bars they would line back up and do this rhythmic cadence and then split off and do their own things again. And it was just, I absolutely love that. It's like this phasing in and out of being in sync, which yeah, phasing out is phasing out of sync. Anyways, yeah, and that's just one example. It is everywhere. The call and response that happens in one part between the solo vocalist and the choir. The part where we have the solo vocalist and the guitar harmonizing and doing their own thing while another solo vocalist, or maybe it was a choir, was doing another melody line on top of that, and it was getting very convoluted. The words were getting very messy as far as I was concerned. But yeah, there's so many points where there's multiple melody lines going on, and just hearing how they come together, I think, is my favorite part. Some of them do work to support each other. Like I mentioned, the violin and the vocalist, they would come together and amplify this rhythmic cadence before going back and doing their thing and kind of working off of each other rather than with each other. But there's also moments where you hear two ideas almost battling with each other. They're not stepping on each other's toes. It's not like they're playing notes that are clashing. They're not playing rhythms that are clashing and making it muddy to follow either one of them. They're both doing their own thing, not really playing off of each other though. And I absolutely love that because it ties in with so many of the militaristic combat kind of ideas in here. This idea of two musical ideas that are not on the same side, both fighting in a sense, for dominance, for the listener to listen to them. And yeah, that is just so cool because it does tie into the themes here. I'm not sure what all of the lyrics are about, and I think that's where I'm going to pull the overarching concept in. So this is about the Trojan War. I don't know how closely it is to it. I don't know how closely it's based off of the Iliad. I'm sure there's some influence from the Iliad on it. But from what I understand, it's through the eyes of quite a few people. I think there's like two or three specific people that it talks about, and then of course the Greeks and the Romans or sorry, the Greeks and the Trojans, kind of narrators talking about these groups of people rather than the specific leaders. I would say I think were the specific people that showed up in it. I don't know if any of these words are supposed to be coming out of people's mouths or if it's all narration in a style. Um, but yeah, it's about a war. And I absolutely love how those themes show up in here as well. We get those really militaristic marches. And I mentioned that we have some really busy sections in here with lots of movement, lots of chaos, lots of interesting drumming stuff. Not drumming stuff, rhythmic stuff. The drums usually had them. There was those really nice gallops on the bass drums at one point, which makes me wonder if that might have been during a horseback section because it really does have that horse galloping feel, and it only showed up once, and they probably did use horses in the war. So that would have been a really cool tie in there. But that one section came up, and all the fancy rhythm stuff left, and we were just getting this four on the floor drum beat. And I said it's very single-minded. We went from something more chaotic to a single focus. And it wasn't much longer. The lyrics came up, something about fight to the death, there's no other way, and we're gonna keep pushing or something like that. I don't remember. But I just absolutely love how they use the music to support the themes of the lyrics. It really makes me want to go through. I already mentioned I'm going to go through a second time and listen for instrumentation callbacks, but there's probably going to be a time that I need to listen to this with the lyrics pulled up as well and see how everything ties together because I'm sure. Um, oh, it was this section. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nothing to lose, like one will stand. It's all for one and one for all. All we live for will be wiped out. So, yeah, just this single minded, going to war, saving what we are kind of idea. But it would not surprise me to find this actually pops up everywhere, where the atmosphere, the concepts of the music are supporting exactly what the lyrics are talking about. And I mentioned um, transitions. Sometimes we had some really smooth ones, and sometimes we had some very harsh ones, and sometimes we had some that were more on a spectrum between those two extreme ends. And it really makes me wonder if any thought went into them or if that was just, we need to get from this section to the next. Can anybody think of a nice way to do it, or should we just switch? It could have been something very utilitarian like that. But given how there's so much thought put into this track, I almost wonder if there is a reasoning behind some of these. Like if we're going from a specific person in the Trojan army, maybe the leader, and then we're shifting into more of a narrative structure and talking about the Trojans as a group of people, is that going to be smoother than when we change perspective from Trojans to Greeks? Yeah, the Greeks. Is that going to be a harsher transition because we're having this change in region, this change in people rather than a change in scope? And it really makes me want to listen to it like a fifth time and pay attention to the transitions narratively and see how that fits in. Like, oh man, this song works on so many levels. It is incredibly dense. And it's one of those songs that you really just need to know back to forward, everything memorized to really get the most out of. There is a lot of care and detail that has been put into this track. And you can tell. You can tell every aspect of this is dripping with passion. And it is just a phenomenal work of art because of it. So, the the only thing that really gets me is there's a very power metally oomphness about it that it doesn't rub me the wrong way, but it doesn't make me want to listen to some of the sections just because of where they went. Like at the end, man, we kind of got that Irish jig thing going on, and where did that come from, and how does that fit? That was just a weird pick. And then the thing was that it evolved into the next idea, and it kind of retained that. And yeah, that whole section fell out of place for me musically, but also thematically, lyrically, and yeah, that was just kind of weird. There were a couple of sections that I really liked what they were doing, but the sound itself kind of bounced off of me just because of my personal, um, my biases, what I enjoy out of music, the kind of music I enjoy listening to. I think that's the only negative I have to say is that personally, some of the sounds of the sections aren't my cup of tea. But man, there's just a masterful usage of so many different tools here to craft something that just works on so many levels. And that alone right there is enough to help me get past the parts that might not work for me on a casual level, just because there's so much artistic critical stuff going on. I think that's gonna have to wrap this one up though. Um, I wish I could talk so much more about it. I really do, but yeah, I'm kind of losing it. It was a long song to begin with. I had already forgotten stuff when it ended, and now I've talked about it for 30 minutes or so, and now I'm really starting to lose some of the details. So I'm sure there were some other things I wanted to talk about that I forgot about. But yeah, I think I've conveyed enough about it though that if this intrigues you, go ahead and listen to it again and just try to be very attentive to specifics about it rather than taking it as a whole and seeing what you can find. All right, those are my thoughts on Blind Guardians, and then there was Silence. I'm interested about that. And then there was I'm not too well read on the Trojan War. I've seen uh, at least one, maybe pop culture reimagining of it. I read the Iliad back in high school, but I'm really curious if that is like a main line, maybe from the poem, or what. Maybe it's referencing the end of the war, the silence after the chaos. I don't know. Not this was definitely not what I was expecting though coming into this track, and I was it was such a good surprise. One of the best, easily. So many good moments going on in here. And of course, I talked about it 30 minutes here, but also go back and check out some of what I was commenting on specifically while I was listening to it and how that might tie into some of the things that I brought up later because yeah, like I said, there are more things that I wanted to talk about and I'm kind of blanking out just cuz there's so much going on. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this. Let me know if you agree with me, if there's anything that you learned. Let me know if there's something that stuck out to you. I'm sure there is a lot, especially if you're a big fan and there's a lot of context you want to give me or some things that I might have glossed over or only touched on briefly. Let me know. There's a lot going on in here and I'm open to learn too. No need to invent the wheel. Like I said, I could go back and listen to this a dozen more times with specific concepts in mind. But if someone just wants to tell me too, if someone's already gone through the work to write it down or to learn about it, no point in reinventing the wheel. Go ahead and let me know. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. In there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu. It'll take you to this menu right here. Which has links for everything related to the channel. You can submit your own special selection. You can follow me on Twitter. You can support the channel through Patreon and vote on future themes and songs. You can email me, check out what I've been listening to, check out what I've been making music wise. You can buy some merch, all sorts of stuff in there. I don't know where this thing came from, but I'm going to keep with it. If you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all three of those things. Really helps out the channel a lot. And like I said, I do appreciate it. We got one more video that came out about 15 minutes ago, actually. This one ran over quite a bit. It's the creator request for the week, which is a fantastic resource. It's where bands ask me to check out their stuff, usually smaller bands. It's a fantastic way to learn about some new upcoming bands that are ready to dominate the scene, but just ain't there yet as far as exposure. So it's a great way to learn about new music and possibly get some smaller bands to, get some get some eyes on their music, get some ears on their music, and people can find new bands and stuff. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. All right. Then we got the weekend. I'll be back on Monday, same time as usual, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.